Hello and welcome to another Conan video. Today we'll be looking at the six expansions that were available in the Kickstarter. Let's start off with the kind of Red Sonja type character, the Valkyrie of Money, a red-headed lady who obviously has the fantasy armor of Best Resort, a bikini. Yes, let's have a look inside the box in a second, but before we do that, a little bit of wordage from Mr. Howard himself. "What manner of men are these northern folk?" asked Prospero. "Tall and fair and blue-eyed, their god is Ymir, the frost giant, and each tribe has its own king. They are wayward and fierce. They fight all day and drink ale and roar their wild songs all night." "Then I think you are like them," laughed Prospero. "You laugh greatly, drink deep, and bellow good songs, though I never saw another Cimmerian who drank aught but water, or who ever laughed or ever sang, save to chant dismal dirges." And that was from, as it says here, the Phoenix on the Sword. Contents: a figurine, 2 tiles, and a plastic miniature. So yeah, that's going to be pretty much the trend with most of these expansions, particularly these single figure ones. Anyway, let's get in the box. Yeah, well, it's pretty simple. You've got a hero sheet here. So Vanir Valkyrie, total 10 life, maximum 4 attack or 3 ranged, with a base move of 3 and maximum extension of your move of 3. Manipulation 2 with a red dice, that's pretty good, and then a couple of special abilities. So yeah, quite a nice little figure, and got the evasive, excellent. The mini itself is obviously a representation of the artwork, and I gotta say, it looks reasonably decent, although yeah, the bikini fantasy trope is a little bit tiresome at this stage, but I like it as a trope, to be honest, so I don't have a major problem with it. But yeah, that would be nice if they worked on the options a bit. Then your French and English tiles, should you wish to use it as an enemy rather than as an actual unit. Again, some nice stats there, and I guess that's French and English, although it seems pretty much identical. And the other tiles, I'm just trying to work out if there's any difference. Yeah, it doesn't appear to be, so it looks like it's one of these kind of heroic characters you could activate twice, because as far as I can tell, that those cards are pretty much identical. It would have been nice if this was a slightly different set of skills, but, you know, it's not too bad. You know, I could have easily used the English and French tiles. So, does it represent good value? Well, that's something for you to decide. For me, I'm quite happy to gobble up most things Conan. I'm pleased to see that this tile isn't too distorted. I have come across a few distorted tiles, and yeah, that's pretty much all we've got to say about this one. So let's move on to the next box. This next box, as you can see, is Demon of the Earth, interesting sort of character. And this is basically a monster, so you get a figure and 2 tiles. But the face was higher than his own, and there was a demonic aspect about it, an obliqueness of the eyes, a sharpness of the ears, a wolfish thinness of the lips. The eyes were red as coals of living fire. More details came into view, a slender torso covered with snaky scales, which was yet manlike in shape, with manlike arms from the waist upward. Below, long crane-like legs ended in splayed 3-toed feet, like those of some huge bird. Along the monstrous limbs the blue fire fluttered and ran. He saw it as though a glistening mist. And that's from Beyond the Black River. That's quite a nice, interesting bit of text. Let's hope the mini's good. Let's have a look. The mini is really, really nice, I've got to say. It's quite a big, chunky thing. Yeah, that's going to paint up really nicely, I think. I'm not sure it quite fits the description from the back of the box, but who cares? It's a fantastic mini. But what's the activations like? Well, again, 2 identical cards, French and English, and you get a duplicate set. And it's got some nice abilities, pretty good move and defense, and the attack, despite not having rerolls is pretty nasty. So this is going to be an interesting character to add as an opponent in various scenarios. I do fear that if you had this plus the snake, you could tie up the adventurers in a really, really horrible way. But yeah, great figure. Should be fun to paint at some stage. And I do plan on getting around to painting the figures, but I'm in no great rush. It's a board game. I'm not obsessed about painting board game minis. But yeah, I really like the look of that, and I'd love them to release some official scenarios with characters like this actually built into the game. I am aware some scenarios have actually been published to the Monolith website. I need to go check them out. More about that in another video maybe. Right, next box. It's some Sabertooth Tiger, and that's a lovely piece of artwork. Again, it's a sort of monster, so one figure and a couple of tiles. And what's the quote here from Beyond the Black River? The creature that stood in the gate was like the embodiment of a nightmare legend. Its colour was of a curious pale quality, which made it seem ghostly and unreal in the dim light. But there was nothing unreal about the low-hung savage head and the great curved fangs that glistened in the firelight. On noiseless, padded feet it approached like a phantom out of the past. It was a survival of an older, grimmer age, the ogre of many an ancient legend, a saber-toothed tiger. No Hyborian hunter had looked upon one of these primordial brutes for centuries. Immemorial myths lent the creatures a supernatural quality, induced by their ghostly colour and their fiendish ferocity. Oh boy, that's exciting. Let's have a look at the mini. It looks pretty good, I think, with a clean and a paint. It's going to be pretty decent. The details on the mini could be a little bit sharper. They're not as bad as the lion from the base set, and I must admit I would be tempted to substitute this figure for the lion if you're not actually using this figure in the game. Overall, probably out of the 3 boxes we've seen so far, this is the worst quality miniature, but it's still pretty good quality, so really pleased so far. Demon of the Earth, I think, is the best quality figure. The Valkyrie is pretty decent, and then this one a close third. What about the tiles then? Let's have a look at these. Are they different? No, they're identical, so let's just focus on the one set. Not so many abilities, pretty decent move, a little bit of defense, and a very interesting mixed dice pool on attacks. I'm surprised there's not a reroll maybe on the weaker attack there. But yeah, nice little card, and no reinforcement cost on a lot of these, I'm noticing. So yeah, that's a pretty good box. Onwards to the next one. Okay, we got some giant wolves here, which is good because I keep calling the hyenas wolves for some reason. And I love the artwork here. That's a beautiful rendition of some wolves. What's our quote? The hour of the dragon. Conan, scrambling up, saw the man lying dead with his throat torn out, and a great grey wolf stood over him, head sunk as it smelled the blood that formed a pool on the grass. She called to the wolf, and it trotted to her side like a great dog, and rubbed its giant shoulder against her knee, while it gazed at Conan with great green lambent eyes. Absently she laid her hand upon its mighty neck, and so the two stood regarding the king of Aquilonia. The great wolf drowsed beside her, facing the fire, his huge head sunk on his paws, his ears twitching in his dreams. So yeah, obviously some excerpts there from the story, and this one actually slightly different. 3 tiles and 10 miniatures. Could be an interesting opening here. Let's have a look inside. This set, as you can see, has 10 wolves. The wolves, unfortunately, are not quite as epic as the artwork on the tiles. And as you can see, my tile keeps actually falling out. A move of 5, holy whatsits, and they're also able to be evasive, so these could be real pests at hunting people down, especially in packs of 5 or 10. The minis themselves, as it said, you get 10. What are they like? Let's have a look. They look okay rather than stellar. Yeah, they're pretty good. I was hoping for slightly bigger wolves, with them being described as giant wolves, but yeah, they're a pretty decent size, I have to say. Yeah, pretty good. I can see these being great for scenarios where you just hunt people down with your wolves. Yeah, these tiles do not want to behave themselves, and these have reinforcement costs, so yeah, these are going to be interesting to play with. A great addition for some really cool scenarios, and it's just a shame maybe you can't have them as allies for the heroes. Might have to look at how you might be able to do that, because it'd be quite good to actually have maybe Conan with some wolves on a nice 2-player map or something like that. Anyway, yeah, interesting. I'm not sure where I place this one out of the opening so far. Maybe because of the 10 wolves and the reinforcement costs, slightly ahead of the tiger, but the quote of the Sabertooth Tiger and the actual abilities of the tiger, I don't know. It's tricky. Gonna have to have a think about that one. Anyway, moving on. Let's have a look at the Black Dragons. A nice piece of artwork here showing some heavily armoured guards. The quote for this one is "The Phoenix on the Sword. The Black Dragons were on hand, wild with rage, swearing and ruffling with their hands on their hilts and foreign oaths in their teeth. The guard is here, you old fool," cavalierly snapped Palantids, commander of the Black Dragons, forgetting Publius's rank in the stress of the moment. "Best stop your caterwauling and aid us to bind the king's wound. He's like to bleed to death." Yes, now I believe I actually read this story recently, having picked up the book, and I got to say it'd be quite good to see how these guys get integrated into the game. And you get 5 minis in this box, so let's have a look at them. Minis look pretty good, and subtle variation in the design maybe. Not sure, maybe they are all the same sculpt, but they're just sitting in the box slightly differently. Sadly, only one set of tiles, and they look pretty decent. A red reroll dice on attack, that's going to be pretty good, and some nice little abilities there. Let's have a closer look at one of these minis then. Yeah, that looks like that's going to paint up great. That's a really nice sculpt. I would have liked a little bit more variety. They seem to be 5 pretty much identical figures, but yeah, I'm not complaining. Pretty good. Possibly a little bit of base distortion here. I wonder if the hot water and cold water dipping trick might work on straightening out that base. That's a little bit irritating, but you know, I can live with it. Yeah, that's a much nicer, straighter base. Yeah, these are really nice figures. I still think the Demon of the Earth has got it from a beautiful sculpt point of view, but this is definitely the best unit. I would have liked to have been able to integrate these as bodyguards to Conan. I'm not sure if there is in fact a scenario in the Kickstarter expansion box that maybe does do that. I need to have a look in more detail at that. Yeah, that's a nice set of figures there. Very nice. Right, we're down to the last Kickstarter exclusive box. Let's have a look at it. Balpatar. Reminds me of Thrud the Barbarian here, with his ridiculously muscly body with a slightly teeny head. Yeah, it's a nice piece of art, I have to say, but I say is channeling Thrud the Barbarian a bit for me. Now, I was expecting this guy maybe to be a hero, but he seems to have tiles and 1 mini, but no hero card. Be interesting to see what's inside. And we've got a quote here from Shadows in Zambula. "This man was naked, except for a loincloth and high-strapped sandals. He was brown-skinned, with close-cropped black hair and restless black eyes that set off a broad, arrogant face. In girth and breadth he was enormous, with huge limbs on which the great muscles swelled and rippled at each slightest movement. His hands were the largest Conan had ever seen. The assurance of gigantic physical strength coloured his every action and inflection." Well, the artwork certainly fits that, although maybe he should be a little bit darker skinned from the description. And yes, nice big hands for crushing puny humans' heads. Let's have a look inside and see if the miniature lives up to the epic quote and artwork. The tiles are actually 3 of this tile and a blank black tile. Not quite what I was expecting. Again, another guy who can pin you in place, and 3 red dice, one of which you can re-roll with 3 armour. Yeah, he's going to be a bit of a beastie to take down. The miniature was pretty good. Isn't quite what I was expecting. I was expecting him maybe to be a little bit taller and on a bigger base, but yeah, it's a pretty decent figure, I have to say. Yeah, painting him is going to be interesting, I think. Not sure where his hair has gone. He seems to be bald, really. There's not much hair detail. But yeah, it's a pretty decent figure. So yeah, there you go. That's the Kickstarter exclusive expansion boxes. I'm not sure if they're going to release these at retail, so I made sure to pick them up when buying my copy of Conan. And I think they're pretty good selections. So anyway, let's tidy up here and have a little bit of a chat about them en masse. Okay, well, I've sort of got the figures in the order I sort of rate them. The Valkyrie, for me, in some ways, is the best expansion. You get an extra hero, or you can use her as a villain, and she's a pretty decent sculpt. The Demon of the Earth, as an individual figure, is probably the best individual figure. Really nice sculpt, some interesting abilities on his card. If you want some nice units, these 2 expansions are great. The dragons, they would be pretty good for both goodies and baddie type characters. And the giant wolves, obviously, for replacements for things like the hyenas from the base game. Both of these are really good. Probably the weakest are the top 2, with Bao being, in my opinion, the weakest of all of them. Do you need these? No, you don't really need any of these, but if you're creating your own scenarios, or if they're going to be bringing out some web-based scenarios, I'm really pleased we've got all of these. I'm not disappointed with any of these. If they're in the shop, I would pick them up. But if you missed out on the Kickstarter exclusive, really the only one I would be trying to hunt down is the Valkyrie, I think, because of her dual-purpose use. But all of them, as I say, if you can find them at a reasonable price, yeah, go for it. Just bear in mind that there is, as far as I'm aware, no official scenario, apart from possibly one where you can substitute some figures with these figures. But, you know, at the end of the day, none of these are absolutely required. So, probably number 1, number 2, Torn, joint 3rd, 4th and 5th. If I had to pick between the 2 of these, probably because you get more miniatures, you'd go for the wolf if that's important to you. If you prefer better sculpts for painting, the dragons. Anyway, there you go. That's a nice little look at the 6 Kickstarter expansions. So that just leaves the ones that you can get hold of at retail.